Bonjour, bienvenue à Toulouse. Welcome to Toulouse in southwestern France. My name is Véronique, Véro, and I am so happy to go on a stroll with you today. I am going to wait for a few seconds to see if people will pop up or pop in or pop by. Bonjour, bienvenue. We are in Toulouse. Bonjour les amis, I see you arriving. Bonjour, bonjour. Bienvenue à Toulouse. Welcome to Toulouse. Bonjour Hélène and Terry. Ah, j'adore Toulouse. I guess I will see several messages saying j'adore Toulouse today. I don't know many people who come to Toulouse and don't like the city. But like I said earlier, I might be a little biased because I was born here. And I am so happy to be back. Bonjour tout le monde. Okay, so this is Véronique, Véro. Most of you know me already. I am a long-time travel blogger, a Paris-based tour guide, a French language instructor, and I've been traveling through beautiful France this summer. This month in Western France and Southwestern France, and Toulouse is one of the stops on my trip. And along the way, I've been sharing what I see with you every day in social media, on Facebook, on Instagram. And I also share a lot of virtual tours, live stream tours like today, or video guided walks on my YouTube channel. So look me up under France with Véro and you will find all the information I've been sharing for, what has it been? 3 weeks now. It's been lovely. With the exception of the weather, we've had some intense heat this summer in France. In fact, today we were in the low 90s and the sun is hiding right now, which is nice. I was hoping it would light up this beautiful facade in front of me, but it might later. We are outside a landmark in Toulouse, a neighborhood and a landmark named Saint-Sernin, Saint-Sernin, S-E-R-N-I-N. And right now I am looking at one of the newest parts of the city, a plaza that's been completely redone in the last couple of years. I was here in the fall of 2018 and Toulouse looked like a giant construction site. And I remember telling people in this community, wait about 18 months and Toulouse will look spectacular again. And it's been 18 months and it sure does. I really like what they've done with the plaza. It's very civilized, it's brand new. And right now we are in this old neighborhood known as Saint-Sernin, which was a faubourg right outside the city wall, because Toulouse used to be a walled city for a really long time. And Saint-Sernin would have been a faubourg, just a neighborhood outside the city. We're looking at a pretty building here that used to be un collège in the Middle Ages, a school. Today it's a museum. Museum of Archaeology, and I see they have a great exhibit going on. I need to go check it out, dedicated to the Visigoths, this powerful tribe that ruled most of what we know as France today, and Spain as well, when the Roman Empire started to crumble in the 5th century. So this beautiful building has been here for a really, really long time. There used to be a chapel attached next to it, but it's now gone. And of course, what we came here to see is the magnificent Basilica, Sanserna Basilica. You are looking at a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Saint-Sernin is part of the, is on the route of the, oh, let's listen. What a treat. Aren't we lucky today? Merci, Saint-Sernin. So in case you're wondering, it's 7:05 here, 7:05 p.m. I'm tempting to sit along. Bonjour tout le monde, bienvenue. I'm letting the bells do their thing. I'm not sure they're probably not quite done yet. So here is Sanserna Basilica, one of the jewels of Toulouse. A European jewel as well. Like I said, it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site because it's part of the sites famous for pilgrims, on their way to Santiago de Compostela, who have been making stops here since times immemorial. And it is considered one of the largest, if not the largest, Romanesque church in Europe. It is absolutely spectacular. There has been a church or a religious site here for a really, really long time, probably since the 5th or 6th century. But the basilica you're looking at now was erected, they started building it in the 11th century and then pretty much kept working on it through the centuries. In fact, they were still working on it in the early 1930s. And right now they are renovating it as well. Why is this basilica, this church here? Because of Saint-Sernin, or as he is known, Saint-Sernin. He was the first bishop of Toulouse, and in the 3rd century, he was martyred in this city. They tied him up to a bull, and his body was dragged through the whole city until he died. And remember, the Romans were still here. Those were the early days of Christianity. And eventually they found his body, his remains, and they built a church about a century later, a first church here to honor the saint, because the Christians, the early Christians, really wanted to be buried next to him. And so before this big church came up, picture a compound here. There was an abbey, there was a monastery, there was a cloister, there was a cemetery, and it was surrounded by walls. So it was kind of his own little place, a complex, and outside the city walls. And eventually a village, a borough as we say, grew around it, as the church grew as well. Bienvenue if you just joined us. This is Véro taking you on a walk around Toulouse, my hometown today. And we started the walk here near Saint-Sernin Basilica. What I'd like to do, you see the part of the new plaza they redesigned in the last couple of years, which was a really, really good idea. You can see some people are busy enjoying the plaza, playing pétanque. Young people here, and there's another group over there. The trees will grow eventually. They're young trees, I can tell. Right here, as I said, is a former collège or school in medieval times that became a museum, the Museum of Archaeology. Beautiful collections and a special exhibit. And behind us is a building from the 18th century that has been turned into a lycée, or a public high school. And of course, it's named after the basilica, Lycée Saint-Sernin. That other blue door over there is the gymnasium, the place where the students can work out. Bonjour! He's happy. Welcome if you just joined us. Originally, I had planned to take you through the beautiful courtyard behind the museum. There's a little cafe and it's lovely, but because it's after 7, it's closed now. It's okay, there's plenty to see. There are several entrances into the basilica. This is one of the main ones. We will talk today about the brick. The red brick that Toulouse is so famous for. There's a little legend I'd like to debunk about that brick, actually. You know me, I like the untold stories. I thought it'd be fun for you to walk right next to the basilica so you can admire the architecture. So this lower level here, which mixes brick and stone, is probably part of the oldest church. Trying to keep things stable for you. And you just heard the beautiful bells from the bell tower. We will get a better view of it later. This tower you can see from just about everywhere in Toulouse. It's a very much a landmark locally. People will talk about Saint-Sernin when they see it, or the bells of Saint-Sernin. So this was built in the Romanesque style, but it's very, you will never see a church looking like this, or very hardly in the northern section of France. This style is prevalent in what we call the meridional region, I guess, southern Europe. Oh, it's so quiet, lovely. How is everybody doing today? I usually do my live streamed tours on Saturdays or Sundays, but I am in Toulouse to see family, and this weekend I will be staying with my favorite aunt, who is 93 years old, in a small town outside Toulouse where I used to spend all my summers because my grandparents lived there, so I will not be able to live stream on Saturday. I realize some people are working. A lot of people are working right now, but they will be able to catch the replay. Toulouse is easily accessible with a TGV. It's a 4.5 TGV ride from Paris, and the reason it's a little longer is because it stops in Lyon. Sorry, not in Lyon, in Bordeaux. So you make a stop in Bordeaux and it takes 4.5 hours or so to get back to Paris from Toulouse, but I mean, it's not far. 105 in Austin, huh? Well, like I said, we were in the high 90s earlier. Yesterday was worse. The rain hasn't arrived, knock on wood. I'm hoping it holds off for this first walk, and then the second walk I'll be doing later for my club members. You will soon be getting a really nice view of the tower, the bell tower. How about this? Beautiful. This part of town is pretty quiet, but Toulouse is usually a very lively city. If you saw the little preview I filmed earlier downtown, you could see people having lunch everywhere, and I can see the terraces are starting to fill in too. Yes, I've heard about the fires in California. That's terrible. This is the year of living dangerously. I promise you, it's bad news non-stop. Can never get enough of this view, can we? So remember, the whole reason this place is here is because of a saint, the first bishop of Toulouse, who was martyred in the 3rd century by the people of this city and has been honored since. You know, I like to talk a little bit about history, a little bit about architecture, but mostly I like to show you how a city lives and what locals do. So I try to capture that in the videos. I think that's also very interesting. Love the past like the next person, but I also like to show you what life is like in France right now, in the interesting summer of 2020. Interesting is the word. So in case you haven't heard, I posted about that in this community earlier today. Toulouse became the first city in France this week to make face masks mandatory at all times outdoors all over the city. So far we've had a lot of cities who have, you know, everywhere I've been on this trip, you've heard me say, this section of town we have to wear a mask. I wear mine all the time. But most cities have chosen sections, and Paris has done that as well, which makes things really complicated. Toulouse was the first one who said, okay, enough of that, wear face masks everywhere. And that was announced on Wednesday afternoon, and it came in full force at 8 a.m. today. And a lot of people are wearing their masks. I think it's going to take a little time and a few fines. The fines are pretty steep for people to do it all the time, but they will get there. Nice also announced on the French Riviera that they will do the same thing. I think they said that yesterday. For me, it doesn't change that much since, as you know, I've been traveling through heat waves with my mask on. So we have now walked around this beautiful basilica, and I wanted you to experience the beautiful new space they have created around it. This would have been one of the favorite ways to enter the site. This is probably one of the oldest parts of the church. Now I went inside and filmed a short video of the basilica. I will be sharing later with club members. They have been spoiled this summer. These people, my club members, have been spoiled, haven't they? Videos, photos, exclusive stories, all on top of the rewards they're getting as part of the program. But I wanted to say thank you properly for the support. Now, the reason this door behind me, or this gate, was the main entrance, or one of the favorite entrances, is because of the street. There is a church that you see at the end of the street. And it's connected to the story of that poor saint. So for those of you who like to look at street signs so you can follow the walk, we are now entering la rue du Taur. Taur, T-A-U-R, stands for taureau, which means bull. Yes, there is a bull involved in our story. One thing I'd like to point out is Toulouse is a major city in the Occitanie region. You may have heard of the Occitanie and the Occitan language that's been around in this part of the country and Spain for a really long time. Notice the street signs are translated in Occitan. So what I'd like to do is walk along la rue du Taur and point out a few things that might be of interest. First of all, the architecture, all that red brick that you've heard about. Now, how many of you have heard the story about Toulouse being nicknamed La Ville Rose, the Pink City? That's what they say about Toulouse. It is the Pink City. You can kind of see why. Right now we're protected from the sun, but at sunset, all those red tiles that were already used by the Romans way back when, and the tiles, the red bricks, sorry, on the facades, and the tiles on the rooftops look like they're on fire. And that's why, you know, they have this pinkish, orangey color. I love those things. Something thing I'd like to point out here. I like a lot of the older buildings in the street have been recycled, put to good use. This bureau de bienfaisance. Bienfaisance is a word that means goodwill, when you help people. And le bureau de bienfaisance is one of many that was created during the French Revolution. You know that solidarity was one of the big tenets of the French revolutionaries, fraternity rather, but solidarity as well. And so during the French Revolution, the French government, the revolutionaries, asked a lot of cities to take care of the people who needed help in their towns. People who were sick, people who were crippled, prostitutes, orphan children. And so each city or many cities would have un bureau de bienfaisance like this one. Now today you can see the sign on the right hand side. I don't know if you can read it. It says crèche, C-R-E-C-H-E. Crèche is a daycare. So in a way, they still take care of children here. It's a municipal daycare that belongs to the city where children go before they can start kindergarten, so usually before they are 2.5 or 3 years old. I wonder if I could go in there because I hope the connection holds up here. This is a school, École Sermé, which is a kindergarten and an elementary school. There's also some cultural offices dedicated to poetry. You can see the sign telling us there's a school, but I think it's kind of neat to be able to enter such an old building. Let's hope it holds up. Ooh, adventure. See, when I said cultural center, I see a sign, a board here where they have ads, learning English, different events organized. Now, as you know, a lot of the festivals that a lot of cities are famous for in the summer have been canceled this summer. So it's nice when cities still manage to throw a few events together, even small ones. Look at these stairs. Wonder what they used to lead to. And here's the entrance of the school I just mentioned. Kind of neat, huh? And we will talk about this building. You can see a movie screen. There's a reason for that. People love to live outdoors in the south. You see how they do those canopies for shade? A lot of people do that at home too. Oh, this was, I think it looks like the connection's still working. Yeah, the lights are really pretty, aren't they? See how for COVID they have marked the ground here, and there is you can enter one way and exit the other way. They don't want people to get too close. And as we go outside, you see all these old walls. It's just beautiful. This old building used to be, I don't know what it used to be, but I know this gate, this door dates back to the 16th century. Maybe another collège, another school. There were quite a few in the area. Bonjour, je peux regarder? Merci, monsieur. So this is la Cinematek, a place where they play movies indoors and outdoors. We just saw the screen from the other side, from the school. I love this. This is really cute. Cinéma en plein air. Outdoor movies. Outdoor movie theater. And here's the food truck. And this is where people come. I can see the chairs surrounded by these old walls. They have been here since the Middle Ages. It's quiet right now. I wonder if something's happening tonight. Yeah, the streets are fairly clean. Not everywhere. Merci, monsieur. Bonne soirée. Yeah, this is, oh, it was a school. This is a sign that tells us that gate I just showed you is from 1556. So that was right, 16th century, and it was a collège, a school. Now this house, this is what's left of a big house, a big private mansion. We call them hôtels particuliers in the Middle Ages, that belonged to a gentleman who apparently lost it all when he was charged with being a Cathar. I don't know if you have heard about the story of the Cathars in this area and in the Languedoc as well, through the 12th and 13th century. A lot of these people, well, they were eventually decimated by the King of France with the support of the Pope, because they did not follow the same, they did not approve of the way the Catholic Church was practicing religion. And eventually the king took offense, so did the Pope. There were crusades against them, and Toulouse was at the heart of all this. It was one of their strongholds. And a lot of people, like this gentleman, lost everything they had. They were charged with heresy, burned at the stake. It's a very interesting story, the Cathars. You should look it up. You can still visit some of the castles they built. They were more like fortresses, and they were so out of reach on the top of mountains. This is the back, I'm guessing. Yes, this is Rue de l'Esquile. I'm guessing it is the back of the Cinematek. That wall I just showed you on the left, that's probably what this is, because the Cinematek is right behind this. Oh, this is interesting. See the brick here? And you see it's covered up, and then in section it's been cleaned up. I will go back to that a little later. So for France and the south in particular, it's still very early, 7:30 p.m. L'apéro is barely starting. Yesterday I had dinner at after 8 p.m. at my favorite little restaurant in the neighborhood, and there were just 2 tables next to me with people at after 8 p.m. People hadn't arrived yet. Oh, I did not know that Toulouse was Atlanta's twin city. That would make sense. The American city that gave me so much when I was a college student, and my hometown, it would make sense that they would be twin cities. Thank you for letting me know that. I like the sight, the view here. Bonsoir, bonsoir. If you just joined us, my name is Véro. I'm a Paris-based tour guide and a travel blogger, and I've been traveling around France in August, sharing my travels and trying to show people that there is a lot more to France than Paris. Apparently, I have succeeded based on all the messages I have received on YouTube or on Facebook. I know that a lot of you are now considering visiting some of the areas I have featured, from Brittany to the Basque country. Ooh, a dog concert. Now this street, La Rue du Thor, where we are, is connected to the story of the basilica we saw at the beginning of the walk, like I mentioned. There were a lot of pretty homes in the street. Some of them have aged right now, but you can still see some details are really beautiful. Thank you, Elaine. I'm glad you follow me around, you and other friends. Here's a pretty facade coming up right on top of a supermarket of all places. Look at that. I'm going to stop in front of it to show you. A gentleman we just passed is telling the story of the saint. Look at that. Just a little facade in Toulouse. Now, the 19th century buildings in the city usually have some pretty ornate wrought iron work on their balconies and windows. That's how you recognize them. Another feature of the architecture with the brick are the wood, the tall wood shutters. And a lot of them are, oh, I like this street. Too bad the garbage truck is there. Have that removed. That's a pretty street. Actually, that's perfect. You see those blue shutters? Pale blue. I hope the camera shows you the right color. One industry that turned Toulouse into a prosperous city from, let's say, the mid-15th through the mid-16th century was pastel. The dye, you know. It's a plant, and it was grown in this whole area outside Toulouse. And it was harvested, and the dried leaves were made into balls, and then they used it as a dye. They used it for a lot of things. If you go to fancy hotels in Toulouse, even now, they might give you a soap made with pastel, or, you know, lotions. And people, local merchants, became extremely wealthy very quickly with pastel. And it's important to say this because it impacted the architecture of the city tremendously, because within 100 years, a lot of people turned into really wealthy people, and so they wanted to show off their power and prestige, and they built many hôtels particuliers. You know how we've talked about hôtels particuliers being mansions, private mansions? Toulouse still has about 70 of them. Some are more grandiose than others. There are a couple that have been turned into museums. You should really visit them when you come here, like Hôtel das Acesa. And some of these places are like chateaus. Of course, by the mid-16th century, indigo had arrived on the scene, and it proved to be a fierce competitor for pastel. So then the pastel industry kind of declined. But Toulouse still uses this pretty blue color on the shutters, and you see it a lot on the facades. And talk about facades, this is a nice one too. You may recognize this bookstore, Gibert, very famous family. They are represented in Paris on the left bank, near the Place Saint-Michel, and they are here too. Look at this. Do you see the wrought ironwork I was telling you about? Now, the reason this street is named La Rue du Taur, T-A-U-R, after taureau, bull, is because of the little church behind me. Well, not that little. It's very hard to see it. I'll have to turn around later and show it to you. This church, l'Église du Taur, marks the place where this is why the city's so clean. There are garbage trucks everywhere. This place, this church marks the place where the saint, remember our friend Saint Saturnin, was apparently the bull he was tied to, the rope broke right about here. And his body was left here. And two Christians who were probably very brave, because at that time the Romans were still here, and you know, it wasn't a good thing to be an early Christian. They got his body and they buried him nearby, and this is how the whole idea of having a church at the end of the street, this beautiful Sanserna Basilica, came about. So that's why I took you from Saint-Sernin to this street, because this is kind of the start of the story. This is where the body was found. Inside there is a beautiful painting that shows you the martyrdom, that's hard to say, of Saint-Sernin. It shows you the bull and what he went through. And we will be wrapping up in about 5 or 10 minutes. For those of you wondering how long this is going to be, I know you have things to do. I am taking you to the heart of Toulouse. really the heart of the city where people gather for important occasions, athletic events, big announcements. This is the place where les Toulousains, my people, will always meet. And some of you know what place I'm talking about already. It's a magnificent square. We have lots of lovely little squares in this city, but this is the most magnificent one. And it is known as la Place du Capitole, C-A-P-I-T-O-L-E. It is the city hall of Toulouse, and I can promise you one thing, this is the only city in France where I'll be taking you where I'll say the city hall is called the Capitole, because there isn't another one in France. And the reason for that is because there were very powerful men in the city from the 12th century on who were in charge of ruling the city. They were in charge of justice as well. Oh, another truck. This is crazy. So their names were les Capitouls, T-O-U-L-S at the end. And so les Capitouls ruled the city as a council for centuries, until the French Revolution. It didn't go so well for them after that. And so le Capitole, which in another city would be called Mairie or Hôtel de Ville, here, the Capitole is the city hall. So there's always something going on. The merchants are going away right now. There's always a market, an event going on when there is when le Stade Toulousain, the famous local rugby team, wins. People come here to celebrate. I'm going to give you a better view. This truck is not very pretty. Now, unfortunately, one of the wings is being renovated right now. This is a building that started in the 12th century and has been improved upon and modified continuously. It is only in the 18th century that a smart architect decided that he was going to give it this beautiful appearance so that there would be some uniformity in the style. There is a room in there that is so magnificent that I think it's as beautiful as the Hall of Mirrors in Versailles. There are a lot of beautiful paintings, just magnificent. I hope you visit it when you come to Toulouse. And by the way, the very friendly tourist office in Toulouse is located right behind this building. You can either walk around it or you can walk across that big door and get to the other side. Bonjour to those who joined late. So picture this square. It is the heart of all city life in Paris, in Toulouse. We are not in Paris anymore. And if the sun was shining on those facades, they would be on fire because of the brick. But you can see how majestic it is. The tourist office organizes very interesting visits, sometimes in English and in Spanish as well, with licensed tour guides. And they tell you about what's to see. I've taken a couple of tours a few years ago and they were really informative. Very good tour guides, excellent tour guides. So one thing to look at La Place du Capitole is this giant cross on the ground, La Croix d'Occitanie. It represents Occitania. Of course, it would make more sense to see it from above, but you can kind of see all the branches here. You see stickers, it's red and gold. You see stickers with this cross everywhere here. And the interesting thing about it is that each of the 12 points is a zodiac sign. Now, I want to dedicate this to one of my club members. Her name is Jackie. She lives in Alaska. She's a lovely lady. And I know she has a very fond memory here of being here with her friends, where they all stood, I think she told me, on the sign that was theirs and took a picture. So Jackie, this is for you. Oh, I know what this one is. So here we go. We are standing literally in the center of Occitania, in front of the Toulouse Capitol. Now the bricks, let's finish with the bricks. I think that makes for a good story. You know how Toulouse is nicknamed the Pink City, like I said, because of the bricks and the tiles on the rooftops. But get this, in the 18th century, a decision was made, probably by the Capitoul, those powerful men I was telling you about, to hide the brick that even the Romans were using. And they asked everyone to whitewash their facades with this very special white paint. It was oil-based, that was well known for reflecting artificial light, which was a big thing in the 18th century. So they did this for aesthetic reasons. So off they went, everybody whitewashed the facades. In fact, as your homework after this talk or this walk, you can Google the Capitole de Toulouse, the building I just showed you here, and Google old photos of it, and you will see that none of these buildings are red. They're all white. And let me tell you, it doesn't look half as good. Now, the best part of the story is knowing that the facades remained white until the 1950s. So it's actually pretty new, this trend of having all that brick in Toulouse. In fact, a friend told me years ago that they made a mistake when they did this. It sure looks pretty, but they found out soon after that brick takes a lot of work to maintain because it's very porous, and unless it's treated, it doesn't resist pollution very well. So there you go. The city that's famous for being the Pink City was not the Pink City until the mid-1950s. But who cares, right? Look how beautiful it is now. Now, as you can see, the Capitol facade mixes stone and brick. Brick is never considered as noble as stone. And Toulouse was not for a long time as wealthy as Paris. And that's why they used the brick. And now you have the whole story. So people come here, as I said, to gather for big events, and then they come here to enjoy the lovely brasseries on this side of the square. You can have ice cream here on a hot day, or you can have coffee or have lunch or dinner. And under those arcades, as we call them, those arches, you have little stores and restaurants, the same ones, and then you have a really fun exhibit, really interesting exhibit of an artist. It's been there since the late 1990s, and he portrayed important moments in the history of Toulouse and this region. And they're on the ceiling, so you walk up with your nose up in the air, and then there's a plaque that tells you what each representation is. So that's a fun thing to do as well. Voila! I think I need to wrap up now because my club members are waiting for me, will be waiting for me and joining me, I hope, on another Facebook group. They have their own little private Facebook group. I will say goodbye to you. Here I am, Véro. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you've enjoyed this stroll in Toulouse. Imagine what we've seen in just a couple of streets and a couple of landmarks. And there are so many beautiful religious buildings in the city, most of them built between the 13th and 15th century. You'd have to come back and see. My favorites is Les Augustins. There is, of course, there's so many. Big ones, small ones, Les Jacobins, the complex of Les Jacobins and its cloister. Just beautiful. So come to Toulouse, come discover the Southwest. If you like duck, if you like foie gras, you will be very happy here. Great wines as well, bold wines, very good wines. And there are many more stories to tell about Toulouse, but I guess I will have to wait for another time. Merci beaucoup, and à bientôt, mes amis. Oh, club members, I will see you in 10 minutes in the other Facebook group. I need to walk to a different location, take you to my favorite place. À bientôt.